Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Allison, and I'm head of support here at HiBob. And I'm joined today by Maur Barkin. He's our solution architect at Bob. So he helps us with all things integrations, and this is why he'll be joining us for this session specifically. So thank you, Maur, for joining us. So as mentioned in today's session, we'll be taking a look at the advantages of setting up these all of these various integrations on Bob to your other systems. Then we'll be moving on to a walkthrough done by Maur about the functionalities of these systems and what it actually looks like in practice. At the end of the walkthrough, we'll be really happy to answer some of your questions. You'll be able to send in your questions via the dashboard here, and we'll go through as many as we can after the presentation. Don't worry if we don't get through to yours. We will follow up with you directly after the session, most likely via email. So don't worry about that. So we'll move on to the advantages before I pass off to Maur. So we aim for Bob to be treated and employed as the single source of truth within your company for all things people management. If this is done, it will prove to be very advantageous once integrated with your other systems. The integrations will allow you to have one hub for all of your people data and have it sync with your data in all your other systems. Once integrated, the automation allows for a seamless process. Bob plays nice with your other systems, and this means less manual work for you and for your colleagues. The integration automation in turn can also help lessen the chance of human error, which means the accuracy and quality of your data is improved. Automation and improved data quality can lead to time saving, which will let you and your team focus on what really matters. Lastly, in these times especially, setting up the automations and integrations allows for remote collaboration between teams. So you can work very closely with other team members in HR, team members in IT, office managers, or even operations. So now that I've shared a couple of the little advantages of this, I'm very excited to pass you over to Maur, who will take you through a walkthrough of what the integrations look like in practice. So Maur, off to you.
Hi, thank you, Alison, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Today we are going to go over the benefits of integrating Bob with your various systems. We will show a Bob account with incoming connections from an ATS provider and provisioning to the chosen provider of that Bob account. In order to understand why we should automate the recruiting process, let's first take a look at the traditional network topology. In the traditional network topology, once you decide to hire a new candidate, usually the HR or the recruiter will open a task for the IT person or the IT team in order to create the new employee in the Active Directory or in the IDP or IDM solution that the company is using. Using this manual process basically may lead to human errors and time consuming by the IT if the IT is overloaded, and in cases that they did not get the entire details from the HR person. And in order to eliminate the manual process, in Bob you can integrate with your preferred ATS system in order to receive the candidate details upon hired and sync the employee information to your third-party systems. Bob can integrate with provisioning tools such as Okta, G Suite, Azure, OneLogin, etc. We can also integrate with NetSuite CRM. We can integrate with Jira for ticketing, Slack and MS Teams as collaboration tools, and storage tools such as SFTP or S3 in order to send various data to these folders. Of course, we do support also REST API, webhooks for advanced usages. So basically working with the Bob topology, which means that you're automating the process between the ATS and Bob, can be very beneficial. Bob is basically becomes your single source of truth. You're getting all the data from the ATS system, all the candidate information. Then you're basically changing the candidate into a working employee, and the data is provisioned into your provisioning system. So by the automation and single source of truth, you have less manual work, less human errors, and it's basically time saving because it only takes one person in order to recruit a new candidate. Now, let's see exactly how it works. We have here a Bob account. You can find all the integration details to the Bob account under settings, integrations. The integrations and settings only open for the admin as an admin permission. We can see here under recruitment, this Bob specifically is connected to commit. If we click on manage, we can see all the details of the connection itself, and we can set up notifications. Under the notifications, we can set up a notification to specific employee, specific email, or a custom rule notification according to the data that is received from the ATS. So the notification basically is for the recruiting person or the HR person to get a notification that there's a new hire and that they should complete the process of hiring. So this is the ATS configuration. Let's see what else do we have here. Under provisioning, we can see the various systems that we can connect to. This Bob is connected to Okta. Under the Okta settings, we can basically see the connection details on one hand, and on the other hand, we can set up the provisioning settings. The default setting for provisioning is to provision upon employee start date, which means that once you hire a new employee that has a future start date, we won't provision the user on the spot. We will only provision the user on the start date when the user becomes active in Bob. We can change that setting and basically create the employee in the provisioning system upon creation in Bob, which means that on the same time that you created the user in Bob, it will be created in Okta for this example. And the section below basically controls how the new employee will be created in the provisioning tool. The default setting is according to the employee status in Bob. It means that when you create a new employee that has a future start date, between the hire date, which is the date that you created the employee in Bob, until the start date, the user won't be active. Upon the start date, the user will become active in Bob, and we will active the user in the provisioning provider as well. Always active, the user will be created active in the provisioning tool. Always as inactive, we will always set the user as inactive in the provisioning. Down here, think if you're working with multiple domains, and you wish to only sync a specific domain to the provisioning tool. For example, if you're working with multiple G Suite tenants, that each tenant has its own unique domain, so you can filter out which domain not to sync, sorry, which domain to sync, and all the other domains will not be synced to the provisioning tool. Under the advanced settings, we have an option to either disable or not disable the user upon termination. Once you set up the user to terminate, on the termination date, we will disable the user in the provisioning tool. We are not deleting the user, we are only suspending it. So here you can choose whether to disable the user or not. Another thing I did not mention is that we are also updating changes. Each time there is a change that takes place in Bob, the change will take place also in the provisioning tool. So once a change is made on the fly, we will update the provisioning tool as well. And down here, the last option here, that's the audit log. So you can see each and every user, if it was updated, created, and if it was successful or not. Okay, and now let's see how it actually works. Okay, so for here, for our example, we went into commit, and in commit, sorry, one last thing I forgot to mention. Let's go back to the integrations. This client is also integrated with Slack. So this Bob is connected to Slack, and we basically created a new event that will trigger. We have a channel for all the managers that they would like to see every time that there's a new joiner or new hire in Bob. So we've created a new event for employee created and new joiners only to the New York site. And it's going to a specific channel that all my managers are listening to. So each time we have a new joiner to the New York site, we'll get a trigger in Slack notifying us that there's a new employee that came aboard. Now let's have a look how everything is working together. Here I have commit. I have a position opened for product manager. This is my candidate called James Dean. I have all the details, and currently he's on-site interview. And basically, I decided that he passed all the interviews. I even sent him an offer, and now I would like to hire the candidate. In commit, I'm just changing the candidate to hired. I'm selecting the start date, which I want to be, for this example, today, and click on hire. Now, we will get a notification in Bob, and we'll get an email notification alerting us there is a new hire. You can see here down by the bell, we have a notification, and we got also an email saying there is a new hire, and complete the hiring process, click here. We're going to do it from Bob. You can see that we have a notification, new hire, missing details. Let's click on that. Choose the new hire template. click on start. And now we can see that I got all the details configured already pre-populated from commit. There is a change between the mapping fields from between the various ATSs. Each ATS support different fields that we can pass, but normally we can pass the first name, last name, email, phone number, birthday, start date, job titles, and things like that. There's some of the ATSs also support custom fields, but that varies between the systems. So let's see that we have all the mandatory fields populated. We have the email, first name, last name. Let's scroll down. We have the start date. We have the job title, department. Let's choose a department, type. This specific candidate employee is going to work in New York. And let's click on next. There's no specific task for him right now. It will be invited later on by the HR, and click done. That's it. We can basically see that the candidate was turned into employed because the start date is basically today. If we'll go now to Okta, for example, look for James Dean, we can see that the user was provisioned to Okta because the start date is today. With all the details that we have from Bob, if we'll complete for example, the city, state, etc., the data will also pass. And we can also see that in Slack, we have the new employee created. That's basically how it works. And I think that before we'll go to the new features that we are working on, maybe Alison, if there are any questions so far.
Yeah, of course. We actually have two questions so far. One of them was a question around, does Bob have an integration with SharePoint?
With SharePoint, at the moment, we do not have an integration, but in the end, it all depends on how SharePoint can receive the data, because we have various ways to export the data from Bob. We can export the data even by API webhooks, or we can do a scheduled report into an SFTP or S3 bucket. So it all depends on how SharePoint can get the data, and we can help out and see what's the best way to connect with them.
Great. Thank you for confirming that, Mauer. I do have another question, and it is, can I check if there are any integrations available with Smart Recruiters? And I believe Smart Recruiters is an ATS, so this might be a great opportunity to go through the Hire API.
Yeah. So there are two things, and by the way, Smart Recruiters is a new ATS that we are going to start working on integration with them in the upcoming weeks. So that's one of our new features that's going to come out in the near future. So we will have an integration with them. Another thing that Alison mentioned is that we have the Hire API. The Hire API is basically an API with documents for ATS systems that would like to integrate with Bob. Let me just show you real quick. So it means that if an ATS system is not on our list and is not integrated with Bob, they can, from their side, integrate with Bob with our Hire API, and it will work exactly as I just showed with commit, but they will build the integration on their own. We have a complete documentation on how it works, and how to integrate Bob with the higher API.
Great, thanks for showing us that, Mauer.
Yeah.
I've got another question here, and it's around having multiple domains when trying to use the G Suite. So the question is, if we have multiple domains, do we need to connect to multiple G Suite accounts?
Basically, usually depends on the G Suite account. There are cases where there is a couple of domains on a single account, and there are cases where there are split accounts. When it comes to SSO, there's no problem. You just need to enter the domain, comma, domain, and the etc. And all the multiple domains that are going to be working in the SSO. When it comes to provisioning, there's no problem. The first domain you can configure directly from the provisioning section in the UI, and for now the other domains we can configure in the backend if requested.
Great,
Okay.
thank you. There's a couple questions around which integrations will be coming or which are being worked on, and I know we're going to cover that in one moment. But
Yeah.
just before we do that, I've got another question around G Suite. And the question is, does the integration with G Suite send the automated email with Google login details when the accounts are created?
Currently not, and it's up to the account manager to make sure to send the email.
Great, thank you. Would you like to do a few more questions, or would you like to share with us what's kind of in the works and what's coming?
So what's in the works, as I mentioned, we have smart recruiters. We are working on Okta scheme integration that will be part of our Okta application. The scheme integration will allow you to sync groups, control the mapping from Okta side, and decide basically from Okta when to sync the data. The largest thing that the integrations team is working right now is integration with ADP WFN, a payroll provider, that will have a complete API integration from Bob to ADP WFN in order to sync all the data needed for payroll. These are the main things that we're currently working on. Yeah, I think we can take a few more questions if there are any.
Great. Yeah, there are a couple more. This question is kind of around permissions and visibility. So the question is, can we have a user in Bob who can manage and set up integrations, but not have access to sensitive employee information like salaries?
Yeah, so that's a good question that we're getting from a lot of customers. We are planning to have and let's call it an IT permission, that the IT will be able to connect to the integrations, create them, and log into many different options in Bob, but won't have access to the sensitive information such as payroll, financial, etc. It is in our roadmap, but currently I do not have an ETA for that.
Great. Thank you, Mauer. That's all right. Yeah, for now, just due to the sensitive nature of some of the integrations, it isn't a permission only available to admins. But as mentioned, it's something we're looking into. So we have another question here, and it's around if we have an integration with Pinpoint ATS. Could you speak to that a little bit, Mauer?
We don't have an integration with Pinpoint ATS, but as I earlier mentioned, they can build the integration on their own using the higher API if they have the capability from their end.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I believe we've got a couple more questions, but some of them might be better suited to follow up with directly, as they're not necessarily around what we've covered in this session.
Okay.
So I do have one more question, and it's around some of the fields that are mapped. So the question is around workable specifically. And this person would like to know, how do we expand the fields that the system imports beyond the new starter's email, name, and start date?
There are other few more fields that we can pass from workable. We do have them in our guides, but there's also the option to add custom fields in workable that we can also pass. So it all depends on which fields exactly are you looking to pass, and it's something that we can surely take with our support to see how to address that.
Great, thank you. And I think that about covers it. As I said, there are a couple more questions in here, and so don't panic if your question is not one of the ones that we have answered yet. We'll follow up with you directly, as I think they might be better suited to a direct conversation, as they're not necessarily right around this topic. So thank you so much for that, Mauer. And yes, for anyone asking, this session has been recorded and it will be sent out to everyone who registered. So don't worry, you will receive a copy of this. If you missed anything at the beginning, don't fret. So that's it from my side. Is there anything else you'd like to share, Mauer?
No, thank you everyone for attending, and I'm looking forward to hear from you guys.
Great, yes. So thank you very much, everyone. We'll be sending a recording of this session as mentioned earlier. And for those of you who have questions left, we will follow up with you directly. And thank you again for attending today. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day.